There's basically never been enough attention in America on the bribes that millionaires and billionaires give to politicians to get whatever it is that they want in politics. But coming soon, it may even get worse if one billionaire gets his way. So we're gonna discuss Kelsey Warren, and I wanna give credit to one particular really chill guy who wrote about this story recently, Jordan Ewell. So here's the issue. There's a lawsuit brought by Texas oil and gas billionaire Kelsey Warren that accuses former Democratic gubernatorial candidate Beto O'Rourke of defamation for slamming Warren's $1 million donation to Texas Governor Greg Abbott back in 2021. So, because he attacked the fact that one billionaire gave $1 million to one candidate, that's a problem legally, he would like you to believe. So what did Beto do? Well, here's an example of the sort of communications that are at issue here. He sent this tweet saying, Abbott's big donors got billions while families froze. Abbott got millions in campaign checks. What'd we get? The Abbott tax. And I detect no errors in his point. The big donors did make tons of money and were free of necessary regulations that definitely could have saved lives and still could going forward. And in return, he got tons of money, including individual checks for $1 million. But anyway, they have a problem with that. And in particular, it's not just a legal thing. Okay, we can be somewhat heartless as lefties sometimes. We should think about the feelings of billionaires. Warren's lawyers have asserted that the natural gas tycoon experienced mental anguish from the comments, ads, and social media posts in which O'Rourke suggested the money was a reward for Abbott going easy on Warren's pipeline company, Energy Transfer Partners, before and after a deadly storm that shut down power to more than 4 million people. I don't know whether he experienced mental anguish or not. I find it hard to believe because that would imply that he was capable of human emotion and someone who is going to so manipulate the system that you would result in an energy infrastructure that leaves people to needlessly die every single year. I have to assume you don't experience emotions the way most people do. Sorry if I'm giving you any mental anguish, Kelsey Warren. In any event, they had another argument. It isn't just that he created anguish with those attacks, but also it's not fair. You can't attack him. He's a private citizen. He's not a public figure, despite the fact that he is a billionaire who has direct regular access to the governor and gets to craft legislation to suit his interests. Nope, it's not good enough. His lawyer, Dean Pamphilus, says, what they're asking you to do here is conclude that $1 million or any campaign contribution makes you a public figure, opens you up to attack that you can't defend against unless you prove actual malice. And there is no precedent for that whatsoever. He's just like you and I, plus billions of dollars. What do you think?
Yeah. So I don't mind or care about the billions of dollars. I care how they spend it. So let me break down the timeline for you guys so you understand how corruption works and how these are the poster children for corruption. So they have this terrible storm, if you guys remember, in Texas, hundreds of people die, right? Now there's giant clamor among the citizens of Texas, including the Republicans, to say, hey, maybe we shouldn't die in a storm like this. Maybe you should have weatherized the energy grid and the different source of the energy that we get. And we shouldn't have A, died, and B, by the way, the gas companies wound up using that to charge so much more. Now, interestingly enough, in Texas, actually the oil companies can be regulated and their prices can be capped. But the gas companies cannot be capped. Why? Because Greg Abbott put in a loophole. Now, how much money did Energy Transfer Partners make during that debacle? The debacle where, remember, hundreds of people died because of their mistake, all the energy companies. Well, they made $2.4 billion. They didn't make less, they made more. They made more. Now forget the fact that they didn't weatherize, that cost them money, right? So they got to get rid of their costs because they have a corrupt governor like Abbott that doesn't regulate them. So he says, who cares? There's a storm, people die. That doesn't affect my profits at all. Having to weatherize it affects my profits because it affects my costs. So they get rid of their costs, but on top of that, they have this fluctuating pricing system only for the gas companies that allowed them to make $5 billion in the middle of that emergency because of that emergency they themselves created. And of that, nearly half of it went to Energy Transfer Partners, $2.4 billion. Then what do? They paid Greg Abbott $1 million to maintain that loophole. I'm sorry, they gave him a campaign contribution. Now, rightfully, Beto O'Rourke running against Abbott said, well, that looks like a bribe, isn't it? Okay, Abbott gets $1 million, and next thing you know, he lets him off the hook. And he doesn't regulate them at all, so that they can rob you again. And that you, by the way, are you protected the next time there's a storm like that? Absolutely not, because the crooks are in charge. Now, this twist, though, guys, this case is a direct danger to democracy. I would argue that this is as direct a danger as January 6th. Because if he wins, he says, not only can I buy any politician I want through legalized bribes, but on top of that, I can sue anyone who dares to speak against me and then bankrupt them. Well, then dissent is dead. And by the way, this comes from the party who says they're in favor of freedom of speech. They say the $1 million is speech, but criticizing the $1 million with actual speech is not speech. It should not be allowed. That Beto O'Rourke should shut up about corruption, and if he ever dares talk about corruption, he should be bankrupted. If he wins, no one will ever speak of corruption. People barely spoke about corruption in the first place. Beto makes one goddamn comment, not nearly enough in my opinion, and now they're trying to bankrupt him. This is the oligarchs crushing our democracy right in front of our eyes. He cannot win. If he wins, we're gonna need a literal revolution in this country. I'm not talking about physical or violent, we're not right wing, but we need a revolution, because otherwise, anyone who actually speaks is going to be crushed by lawsuits and bankrupted and ruined. And the only thing that will speak is money, gobs of money. That is corruption 101. It doesn't get any more corrupt than that, Michael.
Except for the playing field. That's what's so corrupt. The fact is that you can give unlimited amounts of personal money to a state election in Texas that is non-judicial. Judicial is capped, so too are federal elections, Congress and Senate. But any amount of money can be given to a candidate in the state of Texas who is running statewide. That's what you had in play here. If you're Kelsey Warren, you're a moron not to spend $1 million on a governor's race when you're going to make $500 million from what that governor does not do. This was great journalism. The other part of this story that is I think important, it's not about winning or losing. This case has to be thrown out. It shouldn't even make it. It shouldn't even see the light of day in a courtroom. So it would be a loss if the case even makes it to court. They have to throw this case out of court and not hear it.
I've got to add one last thing to what Michael's saying. What he's saying is so important, because if this becomes a 50-50 issue, it's going to have a chilling effect.
Yeah.
Then all the other candidates are going to say, well, I mean, if I say something that's true, I might lose my house, I might lose everything that I have, because one of these billionaires can just sue me out of existence. So then they'll all clam up and they'll never talk about the corruption. Even if the guy doesn't win, if it becomes a 50-50 maybe proposition. No, the courts, I don't know if the courts have anything that's left anymore of principle and decency. I mean, the Supreme Court is the one that opened up the door to legalizing bribery in the first place through Buckley v. Vallejo, Bellotti, and Citizens United. But if there's any decency, if they care about America at all, if they're not all incredible liars, they should throw this out immediately. It is a direct threat to our democracy. I can't overstate it. And the nerve of somebody like Kelsey Warren saying, I know the Supreme Court legalized it, but is it a bribe when you give a politician $1 million? Everyone knows. And if you're a Republican out there, you know. You think if somebody gives Nancy Pelosi $1 million, it isn't a bribe? Of course it's a bribe. You think if they give it to Greg Abbott, all of a sudden magically it's not a bribe? Of course it's a bribe. To say I can give any goddamn bribe I like, I can buy any goddamn politician I like, but you are never allowed to criticize me, and if you do, I'll bankrupt you. Kelsey Warren, understand, that's who you are. You're the one, along with your buddies, just absolutely destroying this country with your deep-seated corruption, your endless bribery. You're a terrible person, terrible. Okay, are you happy now? Or are you gonna try to shut me up? And you're gonna spend a lot of money and say, no one's allowed to criticize the oligarchs, right, Kelsey Warren? That's who you are. That's who you are. You're a monster trying to destroy our democracy. We should never allow this. This is not what America is. Kelsey Warren, Greg Abbott, who took the bribe, are the most un-American people in the whole country. They hate this country. They want it to be them and only them that's in power. No deal, no deal. We'll fight you to the very, very end. We're not like you monsters. We never make it physical, we never make it violent. We're talking about speech, the most American thing in the world. We will fight you rhetorically and politically. And we're not gonna surrender, okay? This is sick stuff. The court should throw him out. And by the way, everyone should shame Kelsey Warren. If you know Kelsey Warren, you should say, you're the one trying to destroy our democracy. You're the one bribing politicians, and you didn't protect the people of Texas. Why? For money. You're already a billionaire. What more money do you need, you sick son of a bitch? What more money do you need? Leave our democracy alone. I can't stand the corruption. Young Turks.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. We really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.